Smallpox is one of the most deadliest diseases that's ever been faced in the world. According to Larry Gilman, 90% of the New World had died from being infected with smallpox. It is believed that smallpox started to affect people when the Europeans came to North and South America in the late 1400s. Mary Nettler says that smallpox was also one of the first diseases to be cured. This disease started everything about medicine and helped us find new ways to find more cures for different diseases. What is smallpox? Smallpox is a virus that is spread through direct contact or breathing the air after a person coughed who had the disease. When ingested, the virus attacks the tissue that has been affected. Symptoms start to appear a few days later and can kill a person. Larry Gilman writes, smallpox is an infectious disease caused by a virus. It was eradicated by 1980 thanks to the global vaccination program. It is also called the varroa virus, and it is held by two governments, those of the United States and the Russian Federation. He also says that the smallpox virus is most often spread by ingestion of virus particles in saliva, either by direct contact through inhaling droplets dispersed in the air by coughing. When ingested, the smallpox virus first infects the tissues of the throat and nasal cavities, followed by the blood and lymph nodes. After 12 days after the infection, a variety of flu-like symptoms appear, including fever. Pustules, that are also pus-filled lumps, develop on the skin, are painful at first, then itchy. What causes smallpox? People do not know for sure how the virus smallpox was created. There are many theories of how the virus came around and who brought it to other countries. Larry Gilman writes two theories, saying that one was that smallpox began as a virus in rodents and first infected humans in Africa about 12,000 years ago. He also writes another theory saying that the European explorers brought the virus of smallpox to North and South America in the late 1400s. Another author, Teddy Schroer, writes that many think that smallpox was mutated to humans from monkey or camel pox. What are some smallpox symptoms? After being exposed to smallpox, symptoms begin to show a few days later. The symptoms make you feel like you're having the flu, but it's a lot worse. According to Larry Gilman, when ingested, the smallpox virus first affects the tissues of the throat, then followed by the blood and lymph nodes. After 12 days after infection, a variety of flu-like symptoms appear, including fever. Pustules develop on the skin and are painful and itchy. How long until you get the disease after being exposed? After being exposed to the smallpox, it takes a week or two for the symptoms to appear and for your body to start to feel weak and ill. Then the infection takes over. Larry Gilman writes that the smallpox virus particles appear in your blood 8 to 10 days after infection. He also writes in his book that about 12 to 14 days after infection, the incubation period ends and the next phase of illness begins suddenly. How does smallpox spread? Smallpox spreads just like how bacteria spreads. By touching someone or something, you get germs, which makes you get sick. It's the same way with smallpox. When someone who already had a disease coughs on you, or by sharing their saliva or getting in their space, you can get this disease. Larry Gilman says that smallpox is most often spread by ingestion of virus particles in saliva. The way a person can get it is either by direct contact or through inhaling droplets distributed in the air by coughing. He also says that the varroa virus is most often caught by inhalation of saliva droplets coughed out by a person who already had the disease. It starts in your nasal cavities and throat, then goes to where the infection is. From the website Medicine.net, Nettleman writes that smallpox is mainly spread by coughing, sneezing, or inhaling on another person. Who and how was the vaccination found? Scientists were trying for years to find a cure for the smallpox disease, but were unsuccessful. Larry Gilman writes, saying that in 1796, Edward Jenner showed that inoculating a person with pus from a cowpox lesion could prevent smallpox. Teddy Schroer's explanation is that Edward Jenner realized the merit of a folk belief that farmers and milkmaids who had encountered a mild pox virus in cattle seldom contracted smallpox. He conducted experiments proving the point and published his findings in 1798 as an inquiry into the cause and effects of viral vaccine. Vaccination and vaccine come from the Latin word for cow. How does the vaccination work? The cowpox dominates the smallpox disease, which helps scar up the smallpox and takes the infection away. This vaccination has helped save millions of lives. Mary Nettleman tells that the vaccine contains live vaccinia virus, but does not contain any smallpox virus. It is not a shot and is administered in a unique manner. A sharp pronged piece of metal is dipped in the vaccine and then used to prick the skin of the patient. This is done several times. If successful, the site of the vaccination will develop small blisters that scab and heal, leaving a scar. This process is called scarification. While the blisters are active, the site should be kept clean, dry, and covered to prevent the vaccinia virus from spreading to others. What happens to the survivors? After the vaccination was found, population stopped decreasing and people's lives were going back to normal, except for the survivors who went through this awful experience and have reminders of it by looking at their scars. Mary Nettleman explains, survivors who have smallpox would have scars, and if you did have the smallpox, you could be blinded if the smallpox got into their eyes. Larry Gilman says that after predominal stage, the fever may drop and the patient feels less sick. The smallpox rash then appears as small red spots, lesions on the tongue and on the inside of the mouth and at the back of the throat. The mouth and throat lesions grow, releasing billions of virus particles into the saliva that may be transmitted to other people. The lesions in the throat trigger coughing, which tends to spread the disease. About 24 hours after the appearance of the mouth and throat rash, a rash appears on the skin, first on the face and on the limbs, and then on the trunk. The rashes become lumpier and fill with fluid. In about a week, the lumps, now filled with pus and called pustules, have become round, raised, and hard to touch, like beads under the skin. Generally, the more severe the rash, the greater the chance the patient will die. In another week, the fluid in the pustules have been absorbed and a crust or scab begins to form over them. Finally, a week later, the crust fell off, leaving bleached skin and indented scars. At this point, the patient has ceased to be infectious. When was smallpox eliminated? Finally, after a few years of the vaccination being out there and people taking it, it was official that smallpox was gone for good. This hard time in the world with everyone sick and dying was finally over. Mary Nettleman tells that in 1980 the World Health Organization, WHO, certified that the world was finally free of smallpox. Thus, smallpox was the first disease to be entirely eradicated. Campaigns are now under the way to try to eliminate other diseases, such as polio and the measles. Gilman writes in his book, children no longer have the vaccination for smallpox because symptoms had not been seen for years. What would happen if smallpox came back? The theories are half and half if the disease came back. Some say that the vaccination will take care of us, while others fear the smallpox will be worse than before, which is why there are experimental medicines that have been created, but have not been able to be tested. Nettleman writes saying, scientists think that if smallpox was re-entered into the body, then the number of people surviving will go down. She also says that there are new experimental medicines that might be effective in smallpox, but these have not been tested in human cases since the disease has been eradicated. Smallpox has been one of the most scariest and traumatizing times for the world to go through, but now there's a cure for it. Smallpox was the start of our technology and medicine, and if it was not for the scientists and people who kept trying for our world to be better, we would be lost without them. And here are my citations where I got the information from to make this presentation. Thanks for watching.